Hi everybody, Colonel Matt here. And what we have is our final design mock-up. This is final in the sense that it's both the last mock-up I'm going to make before construction, and it's the final design that we think we're going to go with. Now, because it's the final, we've made it a little bit bigger than the previous one. At this scale, 1 foot is 1 inch on our gridded paper. So to put that into context, there's a cat. There's the layout. That's in HTC 1S. A pair of scissors. And the hold, a 16-foot tape measure. So the size here is quite a bit bigger. The cat can hide behind it. So the basic shape basically remains unchanged. We still have, there would be a door here, goes outside. We still have a small section over there. That's where I'm going to put much of the power plant. The drop-down wall that you've seen in the other videos, so that we can put the drop ceiling in, runs right about in here. So it's just on the other side of that wall. It's not so important that we need excellent lighting or anything over there, so we weren't worried about any of that. There is a single large light above it, but that'll be probably one of the last things we put in. Anywho, so we still have our elevated curve trestle design up top. 072 curves all throughout the top, 054 throughout the bottom with minor exceptions. The stairs aren't there. Believe it or not, after all this, the stairs are one of the hardest things to get done right. So to hell with it, I'm not putting them in. The intermodal yard will go on this side, various small industry in there. It will go into a tunnel on this side. Now what's changed in particular is, rather than attempt to run a track down along the back edge, what we decided to do was some rearranging. There will be a tunnel here for the lower track to enter, and a switch track from the high end is now over here instead of being the low end. Saves us room, and that will start to come down around, and you basically follow the blue line, and it ends up down here. Now the beauty of that is that that means everything is scenic now, whereas before we were looking at a shelf-like structure from this corner up and around. That's now all proper scenery, carved rock face, trees. It's going to look really nice. No longer have to worry about that. Likewise, I've been given the suggestion on the back side here of what would be the tunnel to put in some access portals that looks like it was carved away into the rock face so we could look into the tunnel. It also makes it really nice if we tend to have a derailment or something, we can reach into the tunnel and pull it out fairly easily. You'll notice the addition of that. Now what that is that will be an elevated, probably girder style bridge. My brain says something like what you would see on the L in Chicago. Only it's for freight traffic, and it'll come up and over and around, and the main purpose of that is that it's a reversing loop. That way, if we need to, after coming up the track, that will allow a train to reverse its direction to go back down to the lower level. We still have a streetcar loop in the middle, streetcar to nowhere, and there is another reverser over here. So you would come around. It only reverses in one direction. Same with the loop up top. Essentially, they only reverse in the direction that would make it so you can go up or down the ramp. So if you can go up the ramp and you want to change direction, you got to go up the ramp and spin down. It's less of a problem as it gives you some nice prototypical operating, maybe longer distance. We've got a pair of switch tracks over off to the side. For those we're using Ross custom switches, there'll be the what's referred to as Gargraves standard. It's an 11-degree depart angle and should work particularly well for a nice, gentle transition. There is a large siding in there for the passenger terminal, and that whole chunk in the middle there will all be a town of some sort. The town or city of Grand Bend, as it were. Now, originally I was going to attempt to actually raise up the transition track, and someone decides they would like to call me. So, there was going to be a transition track. The transition track, the up to down, I was going to actually put that in. However, that would be a pain in the rear, as with everything being to scale, you have about a 3-inch rise off the floor, and it's actually only 10-inch. I have 12-inch gap in between here, so everything looks like it'll work out really well. There's a small tunnel for the lower level over there. No problem getting around the box that we had to put in to block pipes. And just above that area, not in the model, is the drop down to cover the overhead pipes. Right at about here would be the green box that covers the air conditioning vents and stuff like that. One thing we've done is we've widened this side and given more operating area, and we've slightly contracted this side. We now see that this side as being more of an access way in the event of derailment or something like that. These switches will all be powered and connected to an AIU, so we shouldn't have to get back here often once the scenicking is done. It's more of a way to service things that have broken or gone awry. Originally, we had 36-inch on either side, including the front, and the purpose of that was to allow plenty of access for multiple people during operations. But we realized that realistically, you could see everything really well from that front area. You shouldn't have to have people crowding into the back there in the event of an open house or show and tell, or however you want to define it. There's nothing that they won't see operating on the track there anymore, because the blue line is no longer against the wall and coming down a tunnel-like device. So, with everything in the open and visible, we turn that into an access way, more or less for us. Now, down below there, not shown, we're looking and thinking about putting in a hidden classification yard that'll be running underneath the long part there. It'll be a fairly steep dive to get into it, as they'll switch off underneath the blue track there into a tunnel along the back. It'll come along, and then starting about here underneath, it'll switch out into about 8 or so tracks, and it'll basically be like a miniature hump yard. It'll have a slight downward slope and then slope up at the end, and then there'll be a magnetic decouple that can be triggered. Now, with that being a service area, you're not going to sit there. So what we'll do is I found a pair of roughly $60 per camera for a pair of IP cameras, which is a network-enabled camera. These have night vision capability. That they'll be mounted under the benchwork, and the nifty thing about it is you can access via a web browser the camera, and even better is they offer pan and tilt, and so that they can be moved, so one end can watch the switching up front for control of the magnet, and the other one can watch from the back to make sure you don't have any derailments or anything like that. So we'll be able to do a reasonable amount of switching and stage almost everything we have. Now, like last time, the mock-up here is constructed using poster board with a, let's see if we can get it, you can kind of see it, a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch grid, markers, colored pencils, tape, and that's it. Very simple construction, somewhat time consuming to get it mocked up. We should be beginning bench work in the basement within about a week, once we decide on the exact construction method we'd like. Then everything should be good to go. So until next time, where we'll be building bench work and have the camera up, this is Colonel Matt. Sign off.